As promised, part 2, a much more in-depth breakdown of the landmark decision yesterday, August 25th, 2023, by the National Labor Relations Board, making it exponentially easier for workers to unionize and making it so that unions now request recognition instead of requesting an election. So, for a very long time, the NLRB only issued bargaining orders in 3 types of situations. One that everyone is familiar with is the union is certified through an election. The second one being where the employer has voluntarily recognized the union, and this just happens when you have enough signed union cards. Always sign the cards. And the employer has the option of saying, okay, we recognize the union and you don't have to hold an election. This never happens, but it's there. And the third one, very rare, it's called a Giselle bargaining order. And this is when an employer is found to be guilty of union busting that was so bad, so damaging that it made a fair election impossible. And now, enter the case of CEMEX Construction Materials Pacific, LLC. In the case of CEMEX, the majority of CEMEX's ready-mix drivers signed authorization cards designating Teamsters as their union. So the Teamsters petitioned the board for an election. And then management illegally committed such heinous union busting, including terminating one employee, threatening decreased benefits, wage freezes, job losses, the list goes on, that by the time the election was finally held, the union lost by a very narrow margin of 179 to 166. So the board set the election aside, but also ordered CEMEX to go ahead and bargain with the union and found that a Giselle order was warranted, very, very rare. And the board used the CEMEX case to reevaluate. So now the NLRB has found 2 more ways in which they will issue bargaining orders, in addition to the original 3. The first one is if a majority of employees have signed the union authorization cards, always sign the cards, but the employer has refused to recognize the union, the board will now issue a bargaining order unless the employer promptly files a petition for election. So the employer is doing it, not the union. Second, even if the employer files an election petition, the board will issue a bargaining order if the employer commits unfair labor practices, aka union busting, and they'll dismiss the petition. So again, possibly one of the most significant changes to labor law in the last half century. If you are on the fence, if you have been thinking about trying to organize, now is the time.